All right, two final quick questions from the floor. Cindy.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm Cindy Cronenshield with Cambridge Health Tech, and I'm a nutritionist. I have a nutrition science background, and I'm curious, when I hear this dialogue and these conversations, I hear the term lifestyle factors, and I'm wondering if nutrition and dietetics are considered as part of that, because when people don't eat the right nutrients or the right types of foods, disease will occur. And that those diseases may or may not be genetic based. And there's a whole movement in the nutrition industry with functional foods where patients are eating a specific food or nutrient to manage that health condition. And you have these companies producing food supplements. And I'm just curious about whether that nutrition and dietetics are a factor in these genetic discussions, and if life science industry will be looking at creating product to compete with these other companies that already have products out there, and what your opinions are about that. Thank you.
Let's start with Phil and then Robert.
Well, nice question. First of all, in the field of inborn errors of metabolism, diet, as you know, has been very important for a long time. In my own work, I see a recent advance in that area. So, for example, the cost and quality of the low phenylalanine diet for PKU should improve markedly in the next couple of years. I do also see the beginnings of efforts to identify diets that might ameliorate risk for complex disorders. My favorite one, and some of you may know more about it, is certain dietary approaches to delaying the onset of macular degeneration. So I see slow movement in this area.
Robert, did you have a...
Well, I would, we have presented preliminary data on people who learn their ApoE genotype. And we found that the ones who found they were E4 positive, the risk for Alzheimer's disease, had 5 times the probability of ordering dietary supplements online in vitamin stores and so forth, whereas those dietary supplements have not in any way been proven to influence the course or the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So I think I'd make the same point as before. I think dietary sciences, the way it's done in an academic context with evidence-based medicine, is absolutely critical, and for rare diseases and maybe some common diseases where there's empirical data that support those treatments, that's fabulous. But we must make a distinction between the desire to use diet, which everyone has, to address these common complex disorders where there may or may not be any evidence whatsoever.
And real quickly,
yes,
I think genomics can help with alignment of incentives. It's actually much more fun to have 2 lattes and a couple of Big Macs every day and to just sit and watch, say, Dr. Phil, than it is to eat nothing but tofu, rice, alfalfa sprouts, and run every day, which is what I now do because my genome and my doctor, together align my incentives. I want to be healthy. I want to have a vigorous life. So fine, get probabilities and then change your lifestyle and your nutrition based on those probabilities.
But John, here's the problem. If you get back at this moment in time, your genome scan, and it says you are at low risk for diabetes, and it has nothing to do, and it doesn't take into account your family history, and it doesn't take into account your weight. A lot of experts are worried about the issue of false reassurance. They're worried that you will then go justify grabbing that Big Mac and chowing it down because you've gotten genetic information that reassures you you're at low risk.
So let's hope it's a combination of rational thought and counseling from your doctor plus genomics, only used if it's a positive incentive.
Exactly.
Final question from the floor.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to a point John Halamka made in passing, but that if one goes public with one's genetic information, you're not just sharing for yourself, you're sharing for all your close relatives. And also, if you don't go public, but you find out something very serious about genetic information, do you inform your family members, and are you, in a sense, making a choice not for yourself, but for lots of people around you when you choose to have this test? Would you want to comment on that?
Sure, this is a great question. The consent for the Personal Genome Project is 35 pages long. And it requires a genetic counselor to meet with you for 2 hours to review. Do you realize that someday there actually, this is kind of CSI, might be the capacity to take your ATGs and Cs, proactively sequence your genome and left your DNA at a crime scene? What are the things you need to think about? Might your, children's children not be able to run political office because it's the Machiavellian gene that you carry or something? So maybe that's adaptive, I don't know. But the idea being that this has incredible responsibility. I had to talk to all my first-degree relatives I had to talk to my wife by association. We don't share a genome, but now she would carry stigma of whatever family issues we would have. And everything that is done with regard to the PGP, I do inform my parents and my cousins. My parents, by the way, are going to be PGP 11 and 12. So George and the team said, let's actually figure out where John got all those bad genes, mom or dad. So we'll be one of the first family cohorts sequenced.
Yeah.
No
So
question.
I usually counsel first about the risk for non-paternity. But I would like to point out that there are already 2 state appellate courts that have addressed the question that the gentleman raised, whether there would be a duty to warn first-degree relatives about a risk. They both involved autosomal dominant cancer syndromes, and typically for the American courts, they were decided in opposite directions about the duty to warn. But it has already penetrated the appellate court level.
Well, just to put this in a clinical context, when I walked into my first cancer clinic as a fellow, and I learned that somebody who just found out they carry a gene that has a 50% risk of being there in all their brothers and sisters. They got 10 brothers and sisters, and they're estranged from their family. So they're not going to bother to tell them that each one of them has a 50% chance of carrying that gene, which in turn gives them a 70% chance of getting colon cancer. I was astounded. Our entire medical system is oriented around the individual. It's not oriented around the family. And I said immediately, we got to call those people. And my genetics teacher said, you can't. Think about that.
Cliff, final thoughts as we wrap up here?
No.
Fine.
Come on. It's a bold new world. This is great stuff.
I think we've got the bold vision. Dietrich, you're not, your guys aren't releasing stuff, but talk about the dark matter of the genome, just as we close here. You're just scratching the surface with a handful of SNPs, but in your recent academic work, you're looking at copy number variants, and you must be anxious to get started. You really almost haven't begun in a way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there are clearly independent genetic risk factors that can be used to stratify the population and do those at high risk benefit. I firmly believe that. I think those, the rest of the genome that we haven't really mined yet with respect to correlations between nucleotide or structure variants and disease will bolster our confidence in those predictive models. So I think it's hugely important. I do want to make a point that I think Cliff is underestimating the numbers of individuals we'll need to really get a handle on the perfectly predict. I know you don't like that word, but as close to perfect as we'll ever get. You're probably looking at all of the people's worth on the planet until you start getting those combinatorials worked out.
And Jorge, good luck with the eBay bidding. Currently, it's $68,000. It ends on Monday, I believe.
Ends on Monday, that's right.
There's still time, everyone. These guys are incredibly busy, incredibly talented. Please join me in thanking them for a really wonderful session.
So I'd love to have you as a backup.
Yes,
Thank you all. The exhibit hall is open, and enjoy the rest of the final day.